I'm Andrew Millen and you're listening to the Celtic Soul podcast. And today we hit a little milestone on the podcast with our 50th episode. Today in the show we'll be chatting to Charlie Lord. Charlie was born in Belfast but emigrated over 30 years ago to the US of A. He now lives in Philadelphia and is a member of the Plough Bhoys Celtic Supporters Club. By day he is a college lecturer and he is also the man behind the Irish American website CelticClothing.com. I spoke to Charlie back in June on episode 4 and I always look forward to hearing his take on what's going on stateside in both Celtic circles and within the wider Irish diaspora. Especially now we have President Joe Biden in office who comes from the Irish diaspora. This episode has been sponsored by St Margaret's Celtic Supporters Club. A big thank you to Hilly, Tommy and all the crew for the continued support of the podcast and for supporting the fanzine over the last 20 years. Thank you very much, boys. If your business or Celtic Supporters Club like what we're doing with the podcast and would like to become a sponsor, please email us at info@celticfanzine.com. And as always, you can contact us through the website or message us on social media. And if you like what we're doing, you can also support us by visiting CelticFanzine.com, where you can become a member, subscribe, buy or donate for the price of a pint. We promise no one wanted Google adverts on our website within our articles and news, and no one wanted advert interruptions on this podcast. We're keeping it real and we're doing our best to keep it independent. Your support will help us to continue to produce quality independent fan journalism, podcasts, video content, free live events when we can get back doing them. But don't worry, if you're not in a position to support us, we will still deliver the same quality content to all listeners free. So folks, please keep the comments and suggestions for guests coming in. The listenership is growing with every episode, so thank you very much, and keep the comments and feedback for future guests coming in. As always, we reach out to all the guests and some of them are confirmed for the next couple of weeks. And here's some of the comments from episode 49 when David Lowe was our guest. First visit to the Celtic Soul podcast. Really enjoyed the crack and we'll be back for more. Keep up your great work, boys and girls. And that's from Daily Mirror columnist Brian McNally. Have to say, Andrew Millen, that was possibly the most interesting podcast you've shared so far. Fascinating to listen to David Lowe in terms of his unique business insights into the football world, the world of Celtic. His football knowledge on the pitch ain't too shabby, and the stories of his life supporting the club were very entertaining. Also, fair play to you for your fitting tribute to Wilkesy. And that comes in from Gary Griffin in Dublin. Great listen this week, Andrew. Fair dues. That's from Frank Cullen. Top listen this morning with David Lowe. How good would it be to get Fergus on? That comes from Eddie Cantwell. Eddie, again, will reach out to Fergus, but as you know, Fergus doesn't do media. Enjoy the podcast every time. Keep up the good work, mate. That's from a good friend of mine, Charlie Glavin down in Cork. Great supporter of the fanzine. Great podcast with David Lowe. Really enjoyed it. Actually met David in 2001 when the Celtic Roadshow came to Limerick. And that comes from Paul on Twitter. Another quality podcast, a great tribute to John Wilkes. David Lowe speaks very well and gives a fantastic insight into the Fergus McCann era. Good to hear about Mayo man John Keane's pivotal role in saving the club. Also interesting stuff about the Celtic Trust and the 4 clubs in Scotland that have went bankrupt. The exact destination of McCann's shares, the crack about Dermot Desmond. Keep up the good work, Andrew. You are keeping a lot of us going during this lockdown. And that comes from Tony Ratton in Sunderland. Thanks for the comment, Tony. Your work is a diamond in the mud just now. And that comes from Brendan McCann out in Dubai. A great listen. Keep up the good work. And that comes from Kettle Glen on Twitter. So here we are at the 50th episode. Thanks for listening, folks. And don't forget to delve back into our back catalogue, where you'll find plenty of interesting conversations with Celtic fans, former Celtic players who have been lucky enough to play on the Paradise Park. We've also spoke to people who have been in the dugout of Celtic Park, and we've also have guests on from the world of arts, media, business and sport. Don't forget to check them out. Hit that rewind button and look up our other episodes. Thank you very much. Livingston, home and away, 2 draws, 2 points. The current dark cloud that hangs over Celtic Park continues to get darker. We all thought we had turned the corner after the Lille game and the introduction of fresh blood, but January has been an absolute disaster, both on and off the field. Red cards, no wins, Dubai, COVID-19, injuries, media bust-ups, snowstorms on a plastic pitch. The quest for 10 is now gone. It's time for a fresh approach on and off the park. I have no doubt that Dermot Desmond is working behind the scenes to make sure the board is shaken up. If that includes a new CEO, we'll have to wait and see. A new manager will be appointed. Of that I have no doubt. When is anyone's guess. It may take time, so be it. The appointment of a new manager has to be chosen carefully, and he will have to tick all the boxes that will get the fans to open their wallets once again and buy season books for next season, in the hope that the vaccine will kick in at some stage and we can get back to Celtic Park. Players will leave and the new manager must be allowed to have a major say in who comes into the club. It looks like Nick Hammond's days are also numbered as head of recruitment. He has failed. Money has been wasted. The new manager must also bring in his own coaching staff, and their first priority should be sorting out our leaky defence and shaky goalkeepers. Roy Keane and Eddie Howe have been linked by the media. Maybe the club are talking to them and maybe they're not. Maybe it's just that they're both unemployed and this is the reason they have been linked with the club. And Celtic then would not have to buy these out of their contracts. I think the club, and it's only my opinion, but I do think they need to search near and far and high and low for the right person, be he be unemployed or still within a contract at another club. And we as fans may have to be patient as we wait for that announcement to the stock market that there are going to be new appointments in the dugout and the boardroom on the London road. Next season, we will still be the biggest and the richest club in Scotland with the biggest worldwide fan base. The board and the new manager should be judged on progression in Europe, and domestically we need to start looking beyond being happy to finish above the Rangers. When fans return, expect the games against the Rangers to be sold out, no matter what price the tickets cost. But unless the manager's box office, the stadium will be half empty when we play almost every other game domestically. I still believe that season book sales will not be as bad as predicted because we are so emotionally wrapped up in our club. And there are still many fans who consider that the season book price is worth it for the 2 games against our neighbours across the city, their Rangers or Newco or Sevco or whatever you like to call them. We are waiting in the wings for the winds of change to blow sooner rather than later. Charlie Lord is an old friend. He was born in Belfast and emigrated to the States over 30 years ago. He now lives in Philadelphia and is a member of the Plough Bhoys Celtic Supporters Club. By day, he's a college lecturer and the man behind Irish-American clothing website CelticClothing.com. And he is also a registered Democrat. Hi Charlie, you're very welcome back to the Celtic Soul podcast at a time when Celtic look to be heading into a transition period with the 10 now looking dead and buried. Has the time finally come for change in the boardroom, the dugout and the dressing room?
Hey, Andrew. Good to be back on again. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you back, Charlie.
Yeah, a change. What a question to start with there, Andrew. That's, it's time come for change in the boardroom and the dugout, the dressing room. Oh boy, I think it's yes to all three, and it's a good question because it's not about individual players. It's not about the manager. It's, it goes all the way up to board level. It's a collective responsibility. And I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, your listeners are obviously as flummoxed and as disappointed and as confused as I would be over here with how we've just seen this season unfold, how we've seen this season. It's just like, it didn't even unfold. It's a train wreck. And I think personally, I think it's been a case of managed decline since Brendan Rodgers left. And oh boy, even at board level, I mean, the decision to appoint Lennon, I know it split the fans right from the get go. Was it a lazy appointment by Lawell and the chief exec? The board, in the showers after the game, he'd brought home the trophies. He did what he was supposed to do. He got us over the line. It was hard to say no, but yeah, it did split the fan base. But now where we're at, we just haven't improved. And I don't see any signs of improvement. We've got a lot of players who seem discontented. They seem like they want away. It looks like we're going to have a lot of turnover between now, like when you're in this window and the summer window, between now and next season. We're looking at Edouard probably leaving, wanting away. We're looking at Encham leaving. We're looking at El Hamed's probably going back to Palestine. I think there's some family issues. The whole COVID thing hasn't worked well for him, even though he's a decent right back. We're looking at who else? Christie's not signing his contract. Brown's contract's up at the end of the season. I mean, there's a long list here. I mean, maybe a big bid comes in from the Italians for Ayer. I mean, like, how is this happening to us, So what a question to start with. Plenty of blame, board level, management level, and not just Lennon himself. You've got Kennedy, you've got the backroom staff, and then you've got the individual responsibility of players. And you know, a lot of Lennon's under a lot of pressure right now. I tried to remain supportive. I think it's at the point now where we need to change. But you know, like there's a lot of talk of Howe and Eddie Howe from, I think it was Bournemouth in the England. And Lennon's saying yesterday, I'm not leaving. I don't blame him. You know, if he left, I think it's going to cost him around a personal cost to him of about £3 million probably, because Lawell had given him a 3-year contract, I think it is, for about £3.5 million. So, I mean, that's a significant. I think if he walks away, you know, he breaks the contract. Celtic don't have to pay him. So, I mean, like, why did and Lawell? Again, there's another issue in terms of, I think when he started, he might have been making $250,000 a year. Now he's pulling in about $3.5 million a year. And it reminds me of a situation. There was a company here in Texas, here in the United States, and I can't remember the name of them, but I'm going back to the 1990s. They were a massive American company. And when they went under, the staff, everybody lost all their pensions, funds. It was a real big news over here. But the way that company was structured, I guess it was during the noughties. You'll certainly remember the noughties back home in Ireland. The problem with the company was they were structured in such a way that the executives were being paid, their bonuses were being paid based on the profits of the company. So they were inflating the share prices and stuff and working the books. Now, I'm not saying anything like that has happened at Celtic. Don't misunderstand me. But the problem is, with regard to Lawell's position and his remuneration, and we know that he gets his bonuses, it's structured in such a way it's pretty comfortable for him. And he can get comfortable because if Celtic make the Champions League, we get 20, 30 million. We get our revenue stream, he gets his bonus. If Celtic end up dropping down in the Europa League, no problem. He gets his bonus. We get a revenue stream, he gets his bonus. And if we don't take steps forward like that as a football team, he just sells a player and he still gets his bonus. So I don't like that setup at board level either. I think it's too easy, too complacent. You get too comfortable. It's been going on for too long. So that would be a major thing for me there. I mean, it's pulling a lot of money out of the club, and it's structured. If his bonus was tied to Celtic qualifying for European football, I'd be a lot more comfortable with that. But right now, it's not. If we qualify, he gets paid. If we don't qualify, he sells a player, we get paid. He gets paid no matter what. So that's not the best. And if he's getting too comfortable, then he makes some of these decisions that, I mean, we all seen the interview on Celtic TV regarding the situation with the trip to Dubai. And it was a little bit kind of, you know, yeah, I'm making this apology, but, you know, it wasn't a wholesome apology where you recognize the facts and stand up and kind of take ownership of the issue. You know, obviously hindsight's 2020. At the time, I remember texting some friends in a Celtic group chat that were in a WhatsApp, and I'm like, "Hey guys, why are we even going to Dubai? You know, I mean, is that not a bit silly?" And then, sure enough, there's all kinds of problems, you know, with the whole trip. It just looked bad. And then we get COVID, and people testing positive for COVID, 13 players out, you know, it just couldn't get out. And it just, and then the snow last night in Livingston, that 2-2 draw, it's all been very painful.
Yeah, Charlie, just on the board, we had David Lowe on the podcast last week, and David had said, you know, that the board was quite comfortable. They'd been there a long time. He explained to us the structures of how the Celtic board and boards in general work. It's well known that Peter's been there for 13 years, and he's huge influence, obviously, and he's not been challenged, and he may not be challenged in the boardroom. But at the end of the day, you spoke there about Neil Lennon quitting the job or walking away. That's not going to happen. It's not his job to sack himself. It's the job of Dermot Desmond, the board, and Peter Lawell, to instruct Peter Lawell to release him from his contract and pay him the money, which is the honourable thing to do, in my opinion. Honour his contract. Now, that costs money. A new manager is going to come in. That's definitely going to happen. A new manager will bring in new players. He might bring in new coaching techniques. Whatever he brings in, he'll bring something. And it's not a given that he'll be successful. But as the team with the most money in the league, as the team with the biggest support in the league, as a team with a worldwide base, as the team with a fabulous stadium, as the team with a fabulous training ground. It should be appealing to managers. And I don't think we should be just going after managers who are unemployed, because that's a cheap option. We've been linked with Roy Keane and, as you said, Howe down, who was with Bournemouth, both unemployed, so both available. The media love to link us with players. I mean, maybe we haven't even spoke to these, but I definitely believe that Dermot Desmond has a plan B. I definitely believe we're speaking to managers. I don't think it might happen overnight, but there's definitely change coming. It's coming down the line, and hopefully whoever does come in, and maybe they're speaking to someone that is under contract and comes out of contract at the end of the summer. So this all needs to be kind of taken into account. There is change happening, and of that I have no doubt, because Dermot Desmond did not get to where he is in business without making hard decisions and without having a plan B.
Well, a couple of things there, Andrew. I must confess I did not hear the podcast last week, so hopefully what I was saying falls in line with the guy who obviously knows a lot more than I would about the board structures, etc. But with regard to your comment there about Dermot Desmond and a plan B, I do tend to agree with you. There's a lot of people, sack the board, sack the manager, all this kind of stuff. But, you can't do that. Obviously, you're talking about a major corporation here, PLC, hundreds of millions of pounds. So it needs to be kind of managed change, And Dermot Desmond does have, I agree with all your comments about why would Lennon walk away? He's got the contracts, etc. But Dermot Desmond does have form here. And I think it would be negligent if they are not already trying to reach out to for a new manager, for candidates. Dermot Desmond does have form here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he dipped into his pocket for about £1 million back in the day to try and attract Martin O'Neill to Celtic Park, and that worked well. And he dipped his hand in his pocket again for about £5 million to bring Brendan Rodgers to Celtic Park, and that worked well. Now, when Rodgers left and went to Leicester, Leicester gave us about £9 million. So whether Dermot Desmond got all his money back plus a bit, or whether £4 million goes in the club, I don't know. But he has form. And he believes personally that he feels that a good manager can have more impact on a team than a marquee signing, like a big name player. And I would have to agree with him. And it's worked with O'Neill, it's worked with Rodgers. And I have a feeling, when you're talking about the plan B, I have a feeling that is his plan also. I would tend to agree with you on that. I hope that something happens by, March, end of March, because again, it's not just a matter of, like you say, getting people because they're unemployed. How might be a good manager? My one concern for him at Celtic is that I don't think he has any European experience, and you're right, the newspapers want to link us with A, B, and C. I personally don't think Roy Keane would be very good for the job. I think Eddie Howe would be better, but Eddie Howe doesn't have European experience, and I see that as a hugely important component of where Celtic need to be if we're going to move forward as the size of the club we are, like the training stuff that we have. And the budget and all this kind of stuff, and the worldwide fan base. We need to be competing in European football. That should be our measure. And right now, with the whole signing policies and I mean, losing the likes of McGinn in negotiations, I mean, we should have these guys in because we need them ready and embedded to get us through the qualifiers and get us into those European competitions, so we're not having disasters like we've had over the last couple of seasons in Europe. Although I think it was this year was awful, as we know. The season before that, we had a pretty good run. We finished top of our European Europa League group, games against Lazio and stuff that we all remember. But there's been a lot of disasters in there too, against European teams with smaller budgets that we should be beating. And it just seems to me that, again, the board's getting comfortable. They're not preparing us. They're not maybe as ambitious enough as much as the fans who we want to see them in European football. And that should be kind of like our benchmark. That's where we should be. That's where we know we're moving forward. Right now, it's pretty obvious that we're moving backwards. It's pretty obvious at this point. I tried to stay loyal to Lennon. He's an Irishman, and look, he's given everything to the club. I think he said yesterday, "I'm not walking away. I've given everything to this club. It's my life, etc." And it has been. And he's been a manager of the club, a player at the club, He's been attacked in the streets, attacked in the stands. So yeah, he's given everything to the club, So I understand why he wouldn't want to walk away. But we need to, we need to be looking at some options, and maybe some other managers who are not out of contract yet, who haven't lost their position yet. Maybe we do try to pay the money to attract someone from another club. There are lots of good managers around. There's guys around Europe who've outthought us tactically within the last couple of seasons. So yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of options there, and that's what we need to be looking at. And I would like to see someone with a European experience.
Yeah, we had Mark Burke on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and Mark, when John Barnes was leaving Celtic and things were going tits up that season, he contacted Dermot Desmond, and Dermot Desmond phoned him and basically told him, I would prefer to spend money on a manager than on players. So you're right in where you're saying that he has dipped into his pocket. He wouldn't tell Mark at the time who the manager was, and it turned out it was Martin O'Neill, and we all know how that worked out. So hopefully he does bring in a manager that can take us, as you say, into Europe, where that should be the benchmark. And the benchmark for a CEO should not be cashing in on one of our stars.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But Charlie, I want to move out of Glasgow we'll nip back into Glasgow, but I want to move stateside because I've been glued to my telly in recent weeks. I've been checking on the American channels, and you never seem to be out of news anymore over there. But look, you have a new president now. I'm told he's only the second Catholic. He's definitely the second of Irish descent to get the big gig in the White House after JFK. And on JFK, I went to visit his ancestral home down in Waterford with my mum and dad in the summer when we got a little break away when it was deemed safe to go on a staycation, and it was amazing to hear the Kennedy story first. And if anyone gets a chance, you should visit that down in Waterford and say what a good friend John Mooney in the Rue Glen Hotel, which is close by, he'll look after you. He did that a couple of days for us. But anyway, back to the White House. That was me just giving John a little plug because he supports us here on the podcast and the fans here. JFK also hung, Charlie, famously, picture of him also hung in famous Baird's Bar in Glasgow's Gallagate, which is sadly with us no more, one of the most famous Celtic pubs ever. I wonder will a Joe Biden picture be hanging up in a Celtic pub soon in Glasgow? We'll have to wait and see. But there's certainly a lot of interest within the Celtic support on Twitter and on social media. Charlie, I know you're a Democrat. You must be very happy with the change of the guard in Washington.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very happy that Donald Trump, glad to see the back of him. He's away off to Mar-a-Lago. I don't know what his future holds. Obviously there's an impeachment process going through Congress at the moment, through the Senate. But additionally, he could face state charges. So I hope that he ends up, in an orange jumpsuit in jail. That's my view on that. But that political movement, he tapped into a sense amongst the white working class, a sense of loss and disenchantment and disenfranchisement here in the United States amongst that particular demographic. These are the folks who worked in the factories around, the Midwest and the Rust Belt, as it's now called. These are the people that did the labor, and a lot of those manufacturing jobs all went overseas, and these people lost their jobs. And some of these towns now, Andrew, are, they're very derelict, they're very run down. There's opioid and drug addictions and social problems. And he kind of tapped into that discontent. So the reason I mention this is because the Democrats, who used to be the party of the unions and the working men and women, the Democrats have lost that demographic. They've now become a little bit elitist. They need to be careful and cautious about some of the positions that they're adopting. They need to win back that working class element. But and maybe we need to educate them too, because there's a lot of stuff in there that's not very appealing. There's some right wing stuff. There's some racist and sexist stuff that. It's obviously not appropriate, and in this day and age, and some of those old mindsets need to be brought forward into the 21st century. Hopefully we can do that. Hopefully we can win some of them back. So I don't know what Trump's future holds. I think personally, the future of America looks a little bit brighter now that we have Joe Biden in it. And I hope that we'll see what happens going forward. Joe himself as an individual, in your introduction there, you were saying that you thought he was second Irish Catholic. I believe that is true. John F. Kennedy was the first, and Joe Biden was the second Irish Catholic in the White House. Interestingly, for me, I think the most interesting aspect is that it wasn't even talked about here. It just went completely under the radar, which I thought was a very good thing. It shows progress. It shows it doesn't matter anymore if you're a Catholic or Irish or what, those kind of issues. Probably matter more at home in the north on our own island than they do to the Americans at this point in time, And Joe Biden does. He actually lives about 8 miles south of me. I live in a place called Chadford, Pennsylvania, which is in the Delaware, on the border with Delaware. And Joe Biden lives just across the Delaware line in Greenville, which is about 8 miles south of my house. In fact, I've actually seen him at Mass. Joe and my wife goes to Mass a lot, and my wife and Joe Biden go to the same chapel. I don't go to Mass as often as I used to, but she'll drag me along at different occasions, Christmas and that kind of thing. And sure enough, there was Joe in Mass one day with his grandchildren. So we were coming back out, and we go up the same road home because we both head north on Route 52. So me and my wife stopped in to get coffee in this nice little coffee shop, and who comes into the coffee shop but Joe Biden with his granddaughters? And I felt like getting a selfie. This is maybe, I'd say, about 3 or 4 years ago. And I felt like asking him for a selfie, but I didn't want to bother him because he had his kids and all with him, But yeah, he was standing right beside me in line getting our coffee. But now he very much identifies with his Irish. And one of the things, the question I wanted to ask him that day, he very much identifies with his Irish background. His mother, I think it was, or his grandmother was a Fitzsimmons or something. I can't really remember, or Finnegan. And he comes from like Scranton up in the northern part of the state here. It's a very working class town. So his grandmother was a Finnegan. He identifies very much with that Irish side of his background. And I had been told, or I had read rather, one time that somebody was asking Joe Biden questions. They were asking him about who are your political influences, historical political influences. And he actually quoted Wolfe Tone as being one of his major historic. That's good. This was, before he might have been vice president. He might have been just become vice president under Obama's first term. And I was like, wow, that's really strange for an American, even if they're Irish American, to know enough about Ireland and Ireland's history and to quote someone like Wolfe Tone, as being a major political influence on them. So I was very impressed by that. So he very much seems to identify with the Irish. He's referred to as Irish Joe Biden and stuff, and you've probably seen the memes and the different things and the stuff on social media out there where he's asked questions and he wouldn't answer a question to the BBC, and he makes these kind of like jokes that are really kind of like not funny. Like growing up in Belfast, he would say things that he thinks are funny, but you wouldn't say them, in polite company because they might be misconstrued. Where he was standing in front of the Irish flag, it was St. Patrick's Day or something here in Washington, D.C. And he says, if you're wearing orange, you're not welcome or you're not allowed in, something like that, So he has this kind of, I don't know, he definitely identifies with the Irish side of his background there, even though if some of his jokes maybe leave a lot to be desired, But yeah, I'm glad he's there. I'm very happy that he was appointed and elected, and it went right under the radar. Nobody even questioned his religion or his heritage or anything. So I think that's progress,
Yeah, but as a registered Democrat, Charlie, you get to vote in the primaries, I believe. And
yep.
He wasn't your first choice.
Yeah, that's right, actually. I'm more of a Bernie Sanders type of guy. Bernie's a little bit more to the left. See, Joe Biden is he is someone who the party thinks, well, let me take a step back. When you're a registered Democrat, you vote in the Democratic primaries. So we get to pick who is going to be the Democratic candidate for president to go against the Republican. In the primaries, I've always voted for Bernie Sanders. I voted for him against Hillary Clinton. I voted for him against Joe Biden. And, that's who I vote for. Now, I always know that Bernie's not going to win because he's, told the Americans he was a socialist, so he's not going to win. But I wanted as I've said to you before, I wanted the political establishment, the Democratic Party, to know that, he has a platform that needs to be listened to. That's the working man's platform. You got to listen to this guy and try and get some of his issues onto the table. So we'll see. Joe Biden is, he was like Hillary Clinton in that he was the establishment candidate. He was the guy the Democratic political establishment wanted to be the nominee to go against Donald Trump. And look, they pick these folks because they think they want the best candidate to win, because with the Democrat, they can then get their policies through the Congress, get them through the Senate, executive branch of government, whatever they got to do, they can get things done, So Joe is kind of a candidate, a president who will unite the party. Everybody can get behind him. He beat Donald Trump, so now we've got the executive branch of government, we've got the legislative branch. So both House and the Senate, it seems like, with the tying vote from Kamala Harris in the Senate. So everything looks pretty good there, and we'll be able to get some things through. And I'll be looking to see what's on that. What policies I'd like to see change in education, because I think the cost of college here is way too much for the kids, and they're getting into debt. That would be an issue with me. But we'll see what kind of policies they're coming through with, and hopefully we can win back some of that white working class vote and not become an elitist middle class kind of political party. I think that would be the wrong thing to do, obviously, because we have to stand up for the working man. The Democrats is the only party in this country that will. The Republicans sure aren't going to. They're going to stand up for business and for economic interests and self-interest many times. The cowardice of them to support Donald Trump through all of this mayhem, it's just been shocking to me that they have stood by him. I just regard it as political cowardice of the highest order, but there you have it.
Yeah, the last time, Charlie, we had you on the show, which was back in June, at that time, we were speaking about the Black Lives Matter movement. We were speaking about the amount of guns in America, and we spoke about the pandemic. Now, over here, Neil Lennon may have divided opinion among Celtic fans, but Donald Trump managed to divide a nation, which would see these right-wing headbangers storm the government buildings, as he tried in vain the last gasp, cling to power. You must have thought you'd never see that day.
Yeah, they were like the actions of a fascist. That's how I perceive them. America often thinks that these things happen in like Belarus or some other country. They don't happen here in the United States. And one of the sad things about Trump's tenure in the White House is that I think he's exposed to the world a lot of America's weaknesses that, and the ugly side of America that America doesn't want to see. America doesn't see these things when it looks in the mirror. Every country has its own view of itself and how it sees itself, how it perceives itself, how it likes to see itself. And then there's the kind of reality of, or how other countries might view them. Well, I think Donald Trump exposed the ugly side of America, and allowed other folks in other countries and America itself to see that ugly side. It's, that's not how America sees itself. It sees itself as the beacon of democracy in this wonderfully advanced country that has great, intelligence agencies and all the stuff that comes with the American dream, or whatever they want to call it here. And unfortunately, a lot of that was exposed as, maybe not being as shiny as everybody thought it is. So yeah, that was an unfortunate part of his time here. But he's gone, so life's getting better.
Thanks very much, Charlie, for the insight into how, I suppose, someone from the Irish Diaspora sees things over there now. But it is it's a very romantic story to think that, when people left this country generations ago, both to the States and to Glasgow, that, an Irishman or people of Irish descent would be in the White House. And then when you look towards Glasgow, you also see how people who fled starvation have, risen to the top in their chosen fields in Glasgow and indeed throughout the world. So, the Irish we sometimes joke about ourselves, and other people, point the finger and call us the thick paddy. And, which is always gets my goat up. But we're certainly not take paddies, and the Irish throughout the world have shown how powerful they can become and how much, I suppose, hard work can deliver, a new life for people. And we spoke, and if anyone gets a chance to go back onto the last podcast that we spoke to Charlie, you explained, that you arrive in America with nothing, but if you work hard, there was plenty of opportunities there. So it's I suppose we have to tip our cap, whether we agree with Biden's politics or not. We have to tip our cap to his people and how they have embraced the American way and progressed their families to the level that one becomes the president of the United States.
Oh yeah, very much so. The Irish here in America, as I said, now they didn't even answer. Don't care about if he's Irish Catholic or not. He's president, and that is indicative in itself of the progress that the Irish have made since we came to this country. Donald Trump's group, those headbangers, as you call them, who attacked the Congress. When the Irish came here, there was a group called the Know Nothings, and they were very anti-immigrant, very anti-Irish, anti-Catholic. So it just shows that history and it's not a progression, an upward progression. We don't always improve as we might think that we do. These groups that we're seeing attacking the Congress recently, they existed, right after on Gortamore when the Irish landed in this country and were treated badly and difficulty getting jobs, housing, all that kind of stuff, And you had those racist cartoons, cartoon caricatures that you're talking about. Now, very interestingly, like you're talking about being referred to as thick paddies and stuff. That kind of stuff, I see much more of that. I used to live in now with the university in England. And while I didn't experience much of that at all, I was aware of the caricatures and perhaps some things that might have been said when you weren't there. But there's none of that here in the United States. When I landed in America, being Irish was definitely an asset to me. There's 100% that being Irish was like a kind of cool thing. You were very welcome and embraced, and it was a very positive experience. There was no negativity of derogatory comments and jokes and all that and caricatures. None of that at all, So yeah, the Irish definitely overcame a lot. Ireland, in Scotland, and wherever else. I know a lot of the young kids now are going to Australia. So yeah, we've definitely overcome a lot and established a lot and achieved a lot. Just like Glasgow Celtic Football Club itself stands there today as a beacon of what the Irish Catholics have achieved in Scotland. And it's like we're here and we're staying and we're part of the country, and you can accept us and embrace us. The same as here in the United States. The Irish, as we know, that it's a long story of their achievements here. I think, interestingly, even when you talk about going to the moon, Andrew, and the achievements of the Irish, there was Buzz Aldrin landed on that capsule. There was three men. Buzz Aldrin. The second guy was Armstrong. I can't remember his first name. Second name was Armstrong, which is Scots Irish name, like the Ulster Scots, right? And the third man there was Michael Collins. So of those three men, you could say the two of them, even who reached the moon, had Irish descent in them. Whether you be Ulster Scots like Armstrong, or whether you're Collins like Michael Collins, an Irish Catholic background like the other of those three men on that. So yeah, we've come to America and literally gone all the way to the moon. We've gone past being presidents and all that kind of stuff. We've already gone to the moon, my friend. So that's a very kind of positive thing about what the Irish can achieve in their travels and their migrations around the world through time and through history. And whether we left because of Gortamore or because of desire to travel, whatever it may be, but it's there. It's in our history, and I find that we're very embraced and welcomed wherever we go. And it's I don't know. It's very kind of flattering, and it's a very good thing for our people. We exhibit a lot of that soft power. I think I spoke before when I was last on with you about each one of us being an ambassador for Ireland, the way every fan is an ambassador for Celtic. And maybe we need to consider that, because some of the scenes I've been seeing recently at Celtic Park there with the fences and everything, and the buses, it's very concerning. People really should not be behaving in that fashion. We represent the club. We have to support the club and the history and everything that we stand for, and that includes our philosophies and our outlook on life that a lot of us share,
the protest certainly did divide the Celtic support. And as I said, Neil Lennon, the opinion on him from the support has, many believe that he stayed too long. We did think he would deliver the 10. I suppose the toughest part for me is that Rangers didn't have to come and fight for it. We handed it to them on a silver platter. So that's a tough one. And it will be the first major honour in Scottish football. And it's not bad for a new club, I suppose, who are only in existence. I suppose, what was it? They don't even hit double figures of existence. From that lovely Valentine's Day, Charlie, was it 8? Yeah. And that lovely Valentine's Day we all celebrated and we still celebrate. They look like they are going to win their first title in their history. I'd like to wish them all the best, but I won't because I couldn't. Neil Lennon has put, as you said, he's put up with a lot. In my estimation, he's contributed greatly to the club, both as a player and a manager, and I think he should be remembered for that. So many managers were sacked at Celtic Park, and names like Billy McNeil come to mind. Every manager's time comes to an end, and I seen one of our previous guests, Gianni Capaldi, the actor, and he put, even Muhammad Ali had to hang his gloves up. And I thought that was a nice way of putting it. And when Neil's time does come to an end, which may be sooner than we think, I think we still will wish him the best of luck, Charlie. I won't. I wish he had delivered the 10. I won't hold a grudge. And I think with time, most fans will heal as well, because it's just a bit raw at the moment. But look, I don't want to go back to Glasgow yet. I want to stay stateside with Charlie, because normally this time of the year, we're looking forward to the Plough Bhoys Celtic Supporters Club Feile at the Plough and Stars in Philadelphia. And I've been lucky enough to be invited over on a couple of occasions to host the Celtic AM show. And while I'm here, I might as well give a big shout out to John Joe and the rest of the club for the hospitality they shown me over the years. And last year, little did we know that how COVID was going to strike. We were talking about it in the pub, Charlie. But hopefully, when we get this vaccine, we can get back to down into Philly and enjoy a few beers and walk around the corner to that fabulous monument that honours the Irish famine and the Americans and how they made their way over, or the Irish and how they made their way over to America. And hopefully we will get back to that, Charlie. Are you still able to meet up with the lads to watch games, or is it just a case of watching from home now?
Well, a lot of it has been watching from home. I've been down a couple of times, and I deliberately kind of went down. Obviously, with the whole lockdown, it's very difficult. When I went down, you have to sit outside, which I was comfortable with. I wouldn't have been going inside anyway. I tend to be particularly cautious about this. I wear my mask religiously or diligently, I should say. And so I sat outside on a couple of occasions, and I deliberately kind of went down because part of it was wanting to get out of the house and talk to adults, part of it because I knew I'd be sitting outside. And also I knew that when the weather turned, I knew I wouldn't be going down in the winter time and having to sit outside in the freezing cold. That we had put a screen up outside and stuff, So I've been down a couple of times, but not recently because the weather has turned and it gets bitter cold over here in the States. Some of the lads have been down there. I think Fitzy was down there recently, Joe Brooks and Seamus and John Joe, different guys talking about, going down, and Tommy Law and different ones. So I'm not quite sure who's been down there recently. I'm waiting until I get the vaccine before I go back down. And I'll be looking forward to that. It doesn't matter, how bad we're playing or whatever, what's happening here. I'll be looking to see the rebuild, because we're in that transition stage. I think you said at the top of the show there, we're moving into this transition phase, on a rebuilding phase. You were asking the question there about Lennon. A couple of things came to mind as you were formulating that question. First of all, I was thinking kind of maybe more of Brown. I think you were talking about Capaldi and Muhammad Ali, and the time has come to hang up the gloves. And you won't hold any grudges against Lennon or anything. And of course, I agree with that. But I'm wondering, like, Scott Brown's contract is up at the end of the season. And maybe that's something we need to kind of think about. Is it maybe Scott Brown's time now to hang up the gloves, hang up the boots, and thank you for many wonderful years of service. He's won everything he could. He's been there for the whole 9 in a row every season, I believe. Him and Forrest, I think, are the only two that played every season. Maybe Scott Brown there. maybe it's something for him to consider. Who knows? And the new lad, Sorrow. I think he's actually been playing quite well. But in reference to at the bottom of the diamond in particular, I know this whole COVID thing forced us to change back again our formation, but we actually started playing pretty decent there. We played with a diamond in the middle and 2 up front. But anyway, when you're talking about Neil Lennon, I actually met him when it was many years ago when I was at university in England. I used to commute to college on the train. I was living in a place called Heaton Chapel on the south side of Manchester. So I come to the train station at 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was, and there's nobody on the platform, and there's one kid sitting on the bench, and he's wearing a Republic of Ireland jersey, bright red hair. And I've got my college books in my bag, which I had a bright green Celtic bag, which I used to use for college. So I see the kid sit down beside me. Hey, how's it going? And lads from Lurgan. I'm from Belfast. We start talking, both Celtic supporters, both Irish supporters. And I'm chatting away to this young lad. And he was telling me that he was with Manchester City, that he was rooming with Niall Quinn, and that he was on loan to Crewe Alexandra at the time. And he was at the train station because he was commuting down to Crewe for training and stuff, So we just got to talking and having a natter away there. And little did I know, this kid, I thought, well, hopefully the kid will have a decent career. Maybe he'll end up in a second, third division. Maybe it won't work. He'll go back home to Ireland like many other kids before him. I didn't know at the time that the kid was going to grow up to be manager of Celtic and be captain of Celtic and have a wonderful career, So I actually met him many, many years ago by chance. And then I actually bumped into him again in Vegas at the Celtic convention many years later. He was over as a guest. I think he was still a player at the time. And, he was very nice and he was very polite and diplomatic. And some of the lads, we were all, having a beer and singing songs. It was late at night, maybe 2 a.m. And Neil Lennon was there, and he kept a discreet distance. You could see that he wanted to come and join in the crack, but maybe professionally it might have been best not to have pictures taken of him and all that kind of stuff. So he stayed at a discreet distance, very well dressed. He had I seem to recall he had a black jacket and a bow tie and stuff on, But he sat there. He wasn't really drinking any alcohol or anything, very well behaved. But you could see he really wanted to join in the crack because that's just part of what he is. Ever since he was an 18-year-old kid, he might have been 17. It was a kid I was talking to, and the kid was sitting right there on that train station bench, and he was Celtic and he was Republic of Ireland, a boy from Lurgan, even from that young age, and I can testify to that because I spoke to him when he was that age, So yeah, look, we stayed there at the start, and he said himself in that statement yesterday, he's given his life, to the club. Why would he walk away? And I've no doubt that we know he's put up with, bullets in the mail and being attacked on the streets and in the stadiums and all the harassment, all the. So he's undoubtedly made great personal sacrifices in terms of maybe where he lives and other career opportunities that he's turned down. So yeah, I'm sure he's given an awful lot of his life to Celtic Football Club on top of playing for the club for so long and managing the club, So like you say, no animosity, no hard feelings. Maybe just sometimes it's time to just hang up the gloves when your time comes. And unfortunately, I think we're kind of there. Like we're not moving forward. We're moving backwards, and we can't have that for the club. We need to be doing better, and we're just not progressing. As I said at the start, it's managed decline since Rodgers left, and it's complacency in the board level. We're kind of circled right back down to the start here, Andrew. It's complacency at the board level, and I don't know if Neil Lennon has the abilities to coach modern teams effectively. Like it's some of those games against strangers. I mean, you could see how Gerrard had him. The ball would get cycled around to the corners, and every time it got to the corner or the left or right corner, 35, 40 yards from goal, 2 or 3 Rangers guys would come in. I mean, they had identified that's the 2 points where we're going to take the ball back off them. That's the point where we're going to attack the ball and win it. And, they were doing numbers on us, and beating us. And none of that has been identified or changed. We're just not. So maybe Neil doesn't have it. And then, of course, you've got the personal responsibility of the players and their motivation. And do they want to be there? There's just a lot. It's a lot to try and process, I get everybody's scratch. It's it's the answer. I think you talking about Dermot Desmond and his plan B, I do agree with that. And as I said earlier, he does have form with that, But yeah, young Neil Lennon, that kid on the train, on the platform of the train, was a Celtic kid even back then. Me and him sitting in England talking Celtic.
Well, while we're talking about young kids, take me back a bit further. Take me back to Belfast and your early memories of Celtic.
Well, it was difficult again, back in those days. You couldn't really get any kind of news on Celtic. You would hear things. There'd be some newspaper articles. The big name for me was Danny McGrain. You'd get a little bit of footage on the TV, but it was mostly English stuff, Andrew. But lads would go over. Belfast back in there when I was a young lad. You're talking the 70s. It was a difficult place. So it was. You'd hear about the Celtic stuff and your community and your friends, and you were naturally just like, we're Celtic, that was our thing, and enjoying football. And there was, I remember in our school days, there was one of the I was primary school, and you had our little football team for the school, and the guy who used to coach us would, if you were a player of the year, you would get this Celtic crest. He'd give you a badge, that could be sewn onto your clothing that had the Celtic crest on it, so just all those little things. It was just in the community and in your being, and that was your football team, and that just grew kind of over the years. And when I landed in America, I brought that with me, and I've kind of held on to that kind of close to my heart, and that's a really good connection for home for me. So when I think I've said to you in the past, when I get back home, to go see Celtic is it's a real kind of, it's just a great day out, a real privilege, a real honor, because you're it's not just the game of football, which we all enjoy and love, but it's that club and it's that history and it's those people and our history, and our legacy in Scotland and around the world, me coming from America and being back home in Ireland and going to Celtic Park and that whole journey. You've done it many times yourself. You got to get up early in the mornings, you got to get on the ships, and you got to drive across, Ayrshire, and you get to Glasgow, and then you see the game, couple of pints, and you come all the way back again, So it's just that's a big day out. That's enjoyable, and that's a treat, I think, is what I'm trying to say. That's a big treat for me as an immigrant, and that's something I held on to. It started as a young boy. Belfast was a typical time, but when I packed my bag to come to America, I put Glasgow Celtic in there with me, and it stayed with me, along with like the Pogues and Christy Moore and a few other bits and pieces,
Yeah, you must be missing your regular visits to your dad in Belfast, and as you say, when you're over visiting your dad, you take that pilgrimage to Celtic Park.
Yeah, that's probably a better word. Pilgrimage, indeed. That's a much better word. Obviously, I'm stuck here in the States. Can't travel. I don't even know if Americans are allowed to land in Europe. The pandemic here has been handled very badly, obviously, as we've discussed, by a colossal lack of leadership. So I haven't even looked at flights, because the whole idea, if I'm allowed on a plane, am I allowed to land in Ireland? If I land in Ireland, do I have to quarantine? There's no way I'm going to put my father, who's 82 years old, I'm not going to put him under any risk, or, it's just not on my radar. I'm going to wait till I get the vaccines. And then hopefully, maybe by the summertime.
And don't forget to pop into me, Charlie, on your way up to Belfast.
It will be an absolute pleasure. We can sit and chat about a few things. Get caught up. I know we were chatting about some technology issues, but I've just been so busy that I haven't had a chance to get back. But I'd be very happy to sit and talk about those items, and then maybe, oh my God, the thought of grabbing a pint and talking about Celtic, how good would that be?
It'd be brilliant, Charlie. It'd be brilliant. Charlie, you mentioned Glasgow there, and on a positive note, there's kind of a lot of negativity hanging around, but on a positive note, Charlie, since the last time I spoke to you, when I spoke to you the last time, you were very excited about the Scottish Cup going to be played and the chance of a quadruple treble. And that became a reality. Where did you watch the game? And did you celebrate with Smiths?
Yeah, the quadruple treble. I remember when the league was the 9 in a row. Halfway through, we were awarded the league, as was quite right and appropriate. And then I remember going to bed that night thinking, oh, darn it, we're not going to get the quadruple treble. But then the news came that it was going to be back on the table. They were going to finish it off, and indeed they did, and we won. And I'll try and keep it positive because the game itself, oh my God, it was like, I can't take this, It went to penalties, I believe, and it was a tough one. When you asked me where did I watch it, I ended up watching it in the house again because of COVID, I didn't go down to the pub or anything like that. And again, you have to remember about the time differences over here. Sometimes the games are on early in the mornings. But yeah, it was very positive. And, we wrapped that up a quadruple treble, 12 trophies in a row. Phenomenal. I think what was it? What was that thing the club came out with? 4 seasons, 3, 1 club. What was it? What was that thing again? 12 trophies, 1 club. I can't remember. It was pretty good. But tremendous that they managed to get that into the history books. It's somewhat of a consolation, Andrew. Let's be honest. We'll kind of look back probably in 2, 3, 4 years' time and say, you know what? Darn it, the 10 got away from us. And let's not focus on that, because we'll look back and we have something to look back on. And it's that quadruple treble, That is something we can look back on, and that'll cheer us up, and that'll make us feel good. And that wee pint of Smithwick's will go down a little bit easier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and was it too early in the morning after the penalty, after that AR penalty within to have a Smithwick?
Well, I can't remember what I was doing that day. Obviously, I watched the match, but no, I don't recall. I don't remember having a celebratory drink. Right? I tend not to drink in the house, Andrew. If I'm going to have a pint, I go out to the pub. So it's not something I'm in the habit of doing. I'm much more in the habit of having a cup of tea when I'm at home. But boy, that was it. That was a nerve-wracking match altogether. But again, we won it, and it's in the history books. And when I tell you what I'll do when I finally get to the pub again, when I get this vaccine. We'll raise the pint again. We'll raise the pint of Smithwick's to the quadruple treble. It's been a tremendous achievement. We have been very fortunate over the last number of years to be alive and to experience, this success that Celtic has been having. Like you say, looks like that other team's about to win their first ever trophy. That's pretty good for a new club. Fair play to them, sort of. But we can focus on the positives. We've got the quadruple treble. We did another 9 in a row. This has been a wonderful period to be alive and to be a Celtic supporter, to be part of it all. So we should be very proud of that, and we should accentuate the positive aspects of that. Let's hopefully we'll be able within the next number of months to move past some of the difficulties we're having and leave the negativity behind us, and we'll be able to look back with pride on our achievements.
Yeah, and was it a cup of tea, Charlie, when Trump lost the election, or was there something a little stronger that night?
As it happens, that particular night, I wasn't at home, and I was at work at my warehouse, and there's a lad there, a fella from County Antrim called Martin McElroy, and he and I, we opened up the whiskey and a bottle of Paddy's. We were not feeling any pain the night that Joe Biden won the American election. Yes, we definitely celebrated, and that was a very long, drawn out thing. I mean, we voted on the Tuesday because of all the ballots being mail-in ballots because of COVID. It took 4 days to count the ballots, so it wasn't until Saturday that evening that we found out for definite 100%. Arizona, Michigan, and the different states had gone for Biden. So it happened to be a Saturday night. It happened to be about 7:00. The news came through that Biden was the winner. We opened the whiskey that night and did some pretty good damage to it. But I didn't open the whiskey. I was at home when we did the quadruple treble, so might have been a cup of tea and just a lot of texting to friends, I'm sure, and whiskey when Biden won the election. But I tell you, as I said there, when I do get down to the pub, when I get this vaccine, I will raise a pint of Guinness, and I'll down a pint of Guinness and toast our quadruple treble, which has been an excellent, wonderful achievement. We will have that, as I said a moment ago, we will have that to look back on, even though the 10 got away from us. In 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time, we'll have the satisfaction of looking back and saying, darn it, that 10 got away from us, but we got the quadruple treble. that's another thing in the locker, in the trophy cabinet, in the history books that we can derive a great deal of pride and satisfaction from. That was, and in the middle of that quadruple treble, there was an invincible treble. Actually, it was the first one. It was an invincible, went through the whole season unbeaten. Tremendous achievements, and lucky to be alive at this time to be Celtic supporters.
Yeah, and indeed, Charlie, you were there for when Tom Rogers-Gold hit the back of the net in person. You travelled the whole way from the States for that one.
Yep, that's on it. I remember it well.
And listen, Charlie, that was a great memory for you. But I don't think I had my time machine when you were last on the show, but I've introduced my time machine now, my imaginary time machine to the podcast. If I can take you back to a moment or a game in time that you attended or would like to have attended, what would it be?
Well, I hadn't thought about games that I'd like to have attended, but if you're going back in that time machine, that game you just mentioned was a good one, that cup final. We beat Aberdeen 2-1. More recently there, the Lazio game was a good one. We got a nice home win against Lazio. And I was also at that Rangers game. We got beat 2-1. Again, recently, our goal came off Edward's hand and kind of deflected. I think they beat us 2-1 at Celtic Park anyway. It was part of that managed decline. But so they were all interesting games, all good games. I'll get to see, Celtic Rangers game was always good. European nights at Celtic Park are always good and great. And the cup finals, obviously, where we're winning is great. But I would go a bit further back again because I actually have only ever been to 2 Celtic Rangers games. The first one was many years ago. Beat 3-0 at Celtic Park. So I think I'm going to pick that one as being my favourite. That one, I'm trying to remember, I don't know what year it was. I think Petrov scored, I think Vargas scored, and Thompson scored a free kick. So that gives you a sense. It must have been under the O'Neill era. So to see Celtic beating the Rangers, it wasn't the 6-2 game, I know. I was here in America, unfortunately. But
Charlie, you've only ever been to one Rangers Celtic game and you've been to one Sevco Celtic game. So let's get that in because that always has to be mentioned when we speak about old coal and new coal.
Yes, I stand corrected, my good man. I stand corrected. Well, thank you for pointing that out. Well spotted. I missed that.
Well, listen, Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure, as it always is, to talk to you. I hope you do go home to see your dad and get another trip to Celtic Park. I hope that I can get back over to your neck of the woods for the Plough Bhoys Feile, and hopefully this time next year I'm looking forward to packing my bags and going over for a couple of days because it's always a brilliant occasion, a brilliant weekend. And I even got to be there when the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, which was the first American football game I ever watched. So there you go. I might be a lucky charm for the Eagles. But yeah, it's always great to get over, Charlie, and it's always great to see you back in Ireland and outside Celtic Park. So listen, look after yourself and get that vaccine and get home soon.
Absolutely. I thank you very much, Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. You're a gentleman. Keep up the wonderful work, and I look forward to seeing you soon. And you and I will definitely going to sup on a pint of Guinness, and I greatly look forward to it.
Hear, hear, Charlie. Hear, hear.
All right. God bless, my friend. Bye-bye.
It's always great and a pleasure to chat to Charlie about Celtic and get an insight into the Irish diaspora and the impact they have made in America. I suppose from the homeland to the White House now. I have to say thank you very much to everybody who bought More Than 90 Minutes issue 112. The print edition landed on my desk Tuesday, and now I only have a handful of copies left to sell. The remaining copies are available to purchase at CelticFanzine.com. I will put the link up in the podcast description. And also a big thank you to all those who've subscribed. Our subscription base for the fanzine continues to grow. Anyone taking out a 12-month subscription will receive a free t-shirt. And if you want to take out a 3-issue subscription, you'll receive a free badge in the post. All subscribers will also get a digital copy of each issue while they wait for the print copy to drop through the letterbox and have access to our digital back issue library. Print and digital subscription details will be on the podcast description. With no match day sales, without your support, there would be no print edition. So as I said, thank you so much for the support. And don't forget to visit our online shop for our t-shirts and merchandise. And we always post out orders that come in before noon each day. Each episode we always throw out a special offer for the listeners. And we're having a bit of a sale at the moment. So if you want one of our Celtic Soul t-shirts, we've took a tenner off. And you'll get that for $9.99. And we've also took a tenner off our famous polo tops. And you get them for $14.99. and that includes worldwide postage, as we don't do hidden charges. As always, thanks to my good friend Ronan McQuillan for producing the show. And if you like what we're doing, you can support us for the price of a pint. Visit the CelticFanzine.com website and you can become a member, subscribe, buy or donate. Folks, there's plenty of articles and news on our website, so don't forget to visit us. And you can also sign up on the website for our new weekly newsletter, which we finally got round to doing last week and will continue to do each week going forward. Don't forget also to download our free app and you'll have access to all our podcasts, articles, daily news, video and info on upcoming events, the fanzine, our online shop, all at the touch of a button on your phone or tablet. All episodes of the podcast are now available on all platforms, so hit the subscribe or follow button so you'll never miss an episode. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review, one of those 1-star reviews for us folks. We are on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, so give us a follow on that, and all the details of our social media are also in the podcast description. Thanks again to our episode sponsor, St. Margaret's Celtic Supporters Club, for once again supporting us, and as always for supporting the fanzine. As I said earlier, 20 years now they've been supporting us. If your business or Celtic Supporters Club like the podcast and would like to become a sponsor, please email us at info@celticfanzine.com. You can also contact us through the website or message us on social media. If you enjoyed the conversation with today's guest, Charlie Lord, and would like to listen to more from fans who have emigrated to the States and have made a new life for themselves, I recommend you give episode 4 a listen, when Charlie was our guest on the show along with former Celtic player Bobby Petta. Bobby, who lives in Glasgow now and has made that his home after deciding not to return to Holland when his playing career finished. In episode 41 and 42, Johnny Vaughan from Dublin spoke about his life stateside and returning home to watch Celtic in Europe. And in episode 31, we spoke to Scottish actor Gianni Capaldi about his life in Las Vegas. Enjoy the weekend, folks. With the Scottish Cup now on hold, we have no game until Wednesday when we take on Hamilton at Celtic Park. We want to lend our support to musicians, performers and songwriters out there who have been hit the hardest by the lockdown restrictions, with no gigs and no venues open. Send your material and we will give you a plug and play you out of each show. This week we will play out with Declan McLaughlin with a song from his new album, The Path of Most Resistance. We will stick up all Declan's details on the podcast description and how you can buy the new album, and we are really looking forward to having Declan on one of our live shows when it's safe to return later in the year, once the vaccine has kicked in and we can all get back onto the live circuit. Christy Moore and Damien Dempsey are raving about the album. I think you'll all agree they know a thing or two about music. That's it for our 50th episode. Stay tuned, stay safe, and as always, keep the faith.
I went out looking for you. I tried the nightclubs and the bars. I searched the alleyways where lonely men will hide their cars. The girls down at the motel are too afraid to say, 'cause we've got mouths to feed, bills to pay. This kind of talk just drives the men away. I tried the station for all the good that would do. It seems their laws don't work for the likes of me and you. I showed your picture and I tried to explain, but you know those dirty cops downtown are all the fucking same. You girls have only got yourselves to blame. We're just shadows, we're just shadows in the dark. Shadows, lonely souls and broken hearts. I was putting on my makeup when the word came on the news. There's a body in the reservoir, and I knew that it was you. When they took you from the water, your hands and feet were tied. I wonder who you called out for just before you died. I fixed myself up just so I could cry. You talked about Eddie, he was getting out last May. Always said he'd come and get you, take all your pain away. I knew you loved him and you didn't care. The fact he tried to kill you once was neither here nor there. I wonder, was it Eddie who took you way out there? We're just shadows, we're just shadows in the dark. We're just shadows, lonely souls and broken hearts. I still have that picture of us on New Year's Eve. You look so happy in your party dress, and I'm stretched across your knee. We've lightning in our eyes, for this year we'd be free. I'd put down the needle and you'd stop chasing speed. You'll never ever know how much that picture means to me. You'll never ever know how much it means to me. We're just shadows, we're just shadows in the dark.